Inside Story Uganda, real source of political updates.
Between 2024 and currently, what is the biggest issue here? Let me start with Andrew. Andrew, because you hold a view to see exactly what happened here, let's start with the executive orders. Number 3, number 2, and when you look at what the president said, and he details a few things in there, what do you make of them?
My grandson.
I was going to start from the historical perspective.
Yes. First of all, I'm going to be very blunt. I disagree with President Museveni 100%. And
Why?
I think he is playing very, very dangerous politics. This country is called Uganda. Every Ugandan has a right to settle in any part of Uganda, and it's in the constitution.
Article 29, E.
It doesn't matter whether I was born in Kigezi, I can go and live in Karamoja. And that must be defended, and that's what creates this country called Uganda. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, and I have gone to Parong and to Gulu and sat with General Saleh. I think the one person who has studied this issue of Balalo comprehensively, more than anybody else, is General Salim Saleh. And he has given me voluminous information about this subject. The following things can be noted. 1, the Balalo who have gone to northern Uganda, specifically Acholi region, went there, met community leaders, individual families and clans, and bought land legally or rented that land legally. I do not know of a single landowner, whether it's a family, a clan, or an individual, who has complained that the people occupying his land robbed it from them. I've seen some people here in Buganda who claim land grabbing. There is no claim of land grabbing in northern Uganda. To even be much more concerned about the dangers Museveni is doing, and this is anti-Museveni, by the way. So I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Yoweri Museveni that I know, not this politician looking for cheap popularity. There are many white people who have farms in Acholi. Omona and Atigo can confirm that for me. No one is complaining against them. There are many Asians who have plantations there. No one is complaining about them. This is a very tribalistic, ethnicized argument. The Chief Justice and other politicians in northern Uganda who are orchestrating this, in their very narrow minds, don't understand that they are opening a Pandora's box, because the Chief Justice himself, who is my grandson, by the way, first of all, I should tell you, like me, I have an ancestry in his village and the village of the Chief Justice, Winyidolo. I can recite here my grandparents. If I finish 5, 6, immediately they all become O. If you come to my compound at home, and have taken Minister Norbert Mao there, the late Ruby Okela, I took him there. I have kids there, my cousin's kids in our compound. One is called Ochaki, another one is called Oli. I have a cousin who does plumbing at home, is called Ochaya. Don't you have those names, sir? So this claim to say that somehow the Balalo and Acholi are different peoples is a fiction of, first hold on a second, is a fiction of the colonial state, which must be resisted. These Balalo are going back home. All of us Ugandans belong to the same thing. We have same ancestry. You can go to among the Bahima communities in Nyabushos there. You will find my wife has brothers. If I picked any of her brothers and I took them on the street in Lango, in Lira or Gulu, she's a Mhima. But the Acholi there would immediately see those boys as their own. So these fictions that were created by colonialism, that there are Bantus, then there are Luos, I don't understand. The Milton Obote, with whom I did autobiographical interviews, let me also add this. He told me a story, you should read, because they published them in the Monitor. He said when Kabalega was captured, he was under the protection of his father. His father was the chief of Kabalega in Lango. So this, I hope, Latigo, my grandson, and you, Mona, you are not involved in this kind of thing. To say that Ugandans who went through willing buyer, willing seller, acquired land in Acholi should be evicted, I find it an outrage. It's against the constitution of Uganda, it's against the politics of Yoweri Museveni, it's against the politics of the NRM, it's against the ideology of Pan-Africanism, it's against even Ugandanness. And let me tell you another thing that makes me extremely upset with Museveni on this matter. there is for you to acquire land there, government put their procedures. You must go and sign with an LC1, LC3, you have to sign with the GISO and the RDC. What do? You have to get the documentation showing that you actually acquired land from legally and legitimately, those two things, from a clan or a family group. Once you have accumulated this pile of documents, you take them to Ministry of Agriculture. At the Ministry of Agriculture, the minister has to sign and approve that now you are a legitimate owner or leasee, they call him leasee of land. Once the minister has signed, you go to the department, something to do with the control of disease. They have to approve and give you a permit to move your cows. So there are government procedures that are elaborate and comprehensive, legal and legitimate, through which Balalo have gone there. You have read there. In 2023, 2024, the president even said, okay, some people are complaining, neighbors, that your cows are going to, in Rutoro, called kuona. What do you call it in Acholi? There is a language, kuona is for my cows break into your garden and eat your crops. Okay. If neighboring people to the Balalo are complaining, that's a legitimate complaint. The president said, okay, to avoid kuonesa, people's whatever, you ensure that 90% of the Balalo within 6 months complied with that directive. These people who are being evicted, they have already complied. The Balalo have invested a lot of money in that area. So I am wondering, the president's conditions were met. Why is he shifting the goalposts? Please, can somebody explain to me? So people have been going through protracted legal processes, and we do not even have any landowner there who is complaining. So on whose behalf is the Chief Justice and other politicians? And they're trying to raise ethnic sentiments. Now, let me finish with my point. Each one of us seated here, Omona there, Latigo here. My grandson, what's your name?
Kennedy.
Kennedy Okello. This is a twin. All of them have plots and own property in Buganda. I appeal to you, Baganda, you behave like these politicians from northern Uganda and ask all of us to be evicted from here. Why should Ugandans, Acholis, Batoro and Basamia, have a right to come to Buganda, buy land, build houses, set up farms, but Balalo don't have that right in Acholi? Finally, me, I come from a kingdom called Toro. I think more than 50%. We have Bachiga, we have Bakonjo, we have Bamba, we are living peacefully. There was a time some Batoro politicians were trying to say, Bachiga, don't come here, we don't want migrants. In Bunyoro, there was this problem of Wafruki, saying Wafruki should not stay here. And Museveni was playing that kind of ethnic politics, which he accused Obote of playing, which Obote never did, by the way. Obote was the most nationalistic of whatever. It is Museveni who is ethnicizing these things. Has Bunyoro fallen apart because Bachiga migrated there? Bachiga are Ugandans, they should be free to move and settle in every place. We have a Ugandan born son of Professor Mahabun Mamdani, Zohran Kwame Mamdani. He has just been elected as a Democratic candidate for mayor of New York. Obama, I think, was born in Hawaii, but he became a senator for Chicago, for Illinois, the state of Illinois, where the state of Chicago is. I think this lady was born in, I can't remember where, Hillary Clinton, but she became mayor, rather senator for New York. I want to go, in fact, I'm going to run in Acholi as a candidate for parliament.
Okay.
Because every Ugandan should be free to run wherever they are. But this thing of saying that Balalo, a certain tribe, must be evicted, who have bought land legally and legitimately, have negotiated and fulfilled all legal obligations, this is a travesty of every single thing Museveni fought for in this country. I'm really, really, really disappointed. Mr. Museveni, you know today, if you did the right thing, I'll defend you with my life. On this one, you are so wrong, and I'm embarrassed on your behalf.
Thank you. Let me come to Professor Latigo. Professor, when you look at this issue, and there was an executive order 3 that was evicting, then it gave guidelines, then there was foot and mouth disease. Now we have executive order 2. Honorable Minister, who is there, actually had orders to make sure that eviction happened by the 15th of June, which had elapsed. Now we're on 25th. This came out last week. What do you make of these executive orders, and what are the sentiments that were missing in this whole picture?
Well, thank you very much, and I thank Andrew for his bluntness. The only thing he forgot to mention is that I actually went to bury his father.
That's so true. So he came to his own village.
I went to bury his father. If I go for the Mpango in Toro, in fact the last one was leader of opposition, we normally assume the president would come late. That day he came early. And the area member of parliament, because I'm leader of opposition, didn't know how to place me, so he put me behind. And then this guy became a prime minister later. He was of municipality MP. Then at some stage the Queen Mother called, and I saw him coming now with almost tears in his eyes, because the Queen Mother told him to move me from there and put me in front. When I go to Toro, I'm extremely comfortable. If I go to any part of this country, I'm extremely comfortable. The argument of Mwenda misses the point, which is the fundamental point. If you go to Acholi, you will find in some places Madope, the Madis were there. If you go, you'll find even the father of the bishop of Arua, Anglican bishop of those days, was settled in Gulu. And every community you can talk of are there. But they are there by a simple process, a human process of assimilation, which is the same process that now you'll see people who many people assumed were Baganda beginning to talk about who they are in Buganda. Many people came to work. They became friends and relatives with the local Baganda, adapted their culture, adapted their names, acquired assets, and they became, by identity, virtually the Baganda. If the Balalo were going to Acholi and raising their animals with the rest of the Acholis and relating to them, that process of assimilation, I can tell you, nobody would point a finger. But what is happening is a very unfortunate thing, because you have a people in northern Uganda, in Acholi, who went through the war. After the war, actually the land crisis started long before the Balalu came. I had a professor from Oxford who came and met me. I was in my farm, and the professor, when I told him, I said, you know, people are not grabbing Acholi lands. The problem now is that young people will see no alternative in life, will pick their own, even their own parents' land, and sell it. To do what? To buy a border, to drink, maybe impress a woman. Now the consequence of that is that the society on which they should grow is crumbling. And the guy said, oh, here goes my research. Because his information was that somebody was grabbing actually land. We are not talking about grabbing land, because the land in Acholi is huge. It's bigger than Rwanda. But we are talking about a process where if you are interested in doing farming in Acholi, either your farming must relate to how they live, or you will find natural resistance, or you come and grow your activity in such a way that as you grow your activity, you even learn, you have friends, you have a few words that you can exchange. Now, that kind of process, there would be no crisis. And that process, you cannot contest it, because you will have no basis, whether morally, culturally, or legally, to contest it. But just think of it, that actually that used to have lots of cattle, that lost their cattle in war, and all of a sudden, some guys come, and because the other guys are so poor, all these things about LCs, it doesn't change the fact that you are dealing with a community that is in poverty. There ought to have been concrete government programs. All these NUSAF were programs that in the end never had roots in Acholi. Those who, you remember this guy in Prime Minister's office, I think he's still even in jail. People just ate the money. If they had involved us, I remember the very early program when the late Agat Didi was minister for Northern Uganda. You know, because he saw that I understood it very well. We would actually go to World Bank meeting. He would leave his PS and go with me. And I was a member of parliament. So that is the problem. Secondly, if you are faced with this kind of challenges, and then you see what is happening, Mwenda will come and talk very strongly. My brother there will come and say we are association of land sellers, and we say this, and then you have a meeting, and that meeting is if you have a meeting in Kigumba and everybody else who is there looks like from one community, is that not tribal? How would we look at your meeting? Has any of those people appealed to senior citizens of our communities like us and said, look, this is a problem we are facing. How can we deal with it? But the issue is that after so many years of war that destroyed the progress, by the way, let nobody fool you. Acholis led this country on many grounds. Gureme one time wrote, and after Onyango Bo, and talked about in the Kachoke Madit in London, how many actually PhD people appeared there. People don't know that some of the earliest professors in Makerere, J.J. Oloya, first African Dean, Semei Nyanzi, and Kibaki, they were the first African lecturers. And if actually we are not discriminatory, Semei Nyanzi is Semei Nyanzi, but he comes from Agago with me and him. He came from Agago, but he's Semei Nyanzi. So let the idea that Acholis are tribalistic be thrown away. We are not. Nyamwe, is it Nyamwe Andao, Commissioner for Agriculture? He married from Kalongo when we were small kids, from Ankole. Rugunda's son married in Atiak. We have our own children who are married in Buganda, from all over. We are not, Acholis are not tribalistic. And this is not about tribalism. This is about recognizing that we have gone over the years of the NRM government, particularly coming into power. We had gone through trauma and difficulties. If you want to, if the government of Uganda, and this is where I can agree with Mwenda in blaming the president, that if we had a systematic agricultural development policy, and we'll say, actually has potential for livestock. And by the way, even when we were students, Professor Kiua taught us animal production. You do all the geographical parameters. The best place to do livestock, beef livestock in Uganda is Acholi. There's no other place in Uganda, none. So yes, the potential is there. And those guys who have gone and bought land see the potential. But how they have gone there is very insensitive and very inconsiderate. When it is like that, it becomes a matter of emotion rather than logic. And some of us have not talked much. When that matter the last time came, I was interviewed. And I said, I want to tell Salim Saleh and his brother that we Acholis have a saying that Kopti Yubo, Kopti Yadunu. Meaning there are fundamental issues in the lung and in the heart. If those fundamental issues are not dealt with and brought out, no matter how good the cattle keeping of the Balalu in Acholi may be, it will be rejected by our people. President Museveni had started a process which we urge that it should continue so that we resolve the issue of the war and the consequences of the war and create a situation of matoput.
Professor, what are these fundamental issues in the lungs and the heart, as you say? Because you mentioned assimilation, but what are these fundamental issues?
That we are how we are now because of the war. That when they were fighting in Luero, all the things that happened there, they will say Abacholi. And yet, we had Acholi commanders, Kennedy Kilama, Eric Odua. Ask if anybody has a complaint against them. You don't find. And they were the commanders in Luero. My own cousin brother died in Luero. So when they even take our people to look at the skulls, how do you know that the skull you are seeing is not the skull of my brother who died there?
Okay.
So, fundamentally, let us rethink this program. Yes, the president is president of Uganda because of politics. He's not by inheritance. So if the politics demands that, he should hear the objection of the Acholis in the manner by which, because these guys who are going there, if you look in the 1960s, how many of them had parents who owned livestock like they have now? Or who owned vehicle like my dad had a vehicle and he had a shop, but I've never moved and taken over land anywhere because of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Minister, let me come to you. You are in the driving seat of this program as it's happening there. 15th didn't happen, 25th is on the doorsteps, Executive Order 2 is out. As the person in charge of this docket, where is the impasse between the region and the people that are coming? Professor has talked about assimilation, Andrew is talking about the politics behind it. What is your take? Why is there an impasse in resolving this matter? And I think my other rejoinder to the question is, why did the verification process fail?
Thank you, Nyangweso. I love to call it that way.
Thank you.
Because like many others have said, your dad was a very incredible citizen. I want to thank viewers, surely, sacrificing this a time like this and to watch and listen to us is I can't take for granted. Let me begin from the point where Andrew introduced the discussion from. First of all, surely, I want to very strongly reject the position and the narrative of Andrew Mwenda about this matter. First of all, let me tell you, people in northern Uganda are the most warm and welcoming, maybe in this entire country. Secondly, it is not a matter of Acholis or any tribe in North. In fact, it's not about Acholis at all. I think, and I am compelled to say you could, because you said General Sale gave you this information. In fact, I am compelled to think you are misrepresenting General Salim Saleh. I want to make this very clear. Timothy, this matter began when the president consulted, invited the leaders from northern Uganda who are around the Karamoja area, because that time there was escalation in cattle raids in Karamoja, and of course, as you know, there's a lot of disruption in the way of life of the people who are around Karamoja. And this meeting took place in Baralege. In that meeting, I remember the leaders complained to the president that, Your Excellency, we have noticed there are people who have kind of invaded our area, but the way they're living with the people is not good. They carry guns, they are violent, they are disrespectful, and they are arrogant. The president himself took trouble to investigate and find who these were. Please, nobody from northern Uganda, not in Lamu, not in Acholi, not in West Nile, even coined the word Balalo. It was the president's word. Nobody called them such. They simply complain that there are some people and their cattle keepers who have invaded their area. And they are this that I've told you. And they carry guns. That was the beginning of the complaint of the people, the people's leaders in that area. The president took trouble to consult. He consulted, he invited some elders from Acholi. One of those is Muse Okwera, Peter Okwera, was I think in the CA or something like that.
It was in this the post
takeover
yes,
legislative arrangement.
Yeah.
That was the so Muse Okwera, Peter was there, and others. So later on the president invited people, including the Chief Justice, not as Chief Justice, but as an elder from Acholi and others. Say, let me listen to this. It was a long day in Entebbe. Timothy, there were gruesome testimonies from the communities from Acholi. Again, in that meeting, nobody there called anybody by name Balal or something. That was the president's own identification of that group. They only complain about people who have come to graze cattle and they're not living well with their communities. Some of them don't recognize boundaries with the neighbors. Others don't allow your cows to graze with them. If your cow crosses in their kraals, it is either castrated or even they take it away. And this was something not common in that community. And many other complaints which were there. And that time I remember there were even testimonies that say that if you take this complaint to police, instead you'll be arrested by the police. It is not my words, these are testimonies who are there, and they are recorded. You can go and trace in the State House. You are there. The whole day the president listened to the people there. And then later on the president also called another group who identified themselves as others who identified themselves that landowners. That's the first time I heard about landowners. They have never existed. I began hearing about Association of Landowners, or is it cattle farmers in northern Uganda. I'm a farmer there myself. We have never had such, but it emerged after that. The president took trouble to say, let me go and see myself. The president flew and went to Okidi in Gulu. While he was there, I was there myself, Timothy. And this is why Professor says they actually possess deep-seated issues, and they say it is in there that the problems are in my lungs, are in my heart. That's how they express themselves. In that meeting, Timothy, those who were grieved were identified and kept away from coming for the meeting where the president was. A number of leaders from that area were also kept away from that meeting. I was there myself. And then the then RDC in that place was the one who was used. It would identify who would speak where the president was. Many MPs were blocked away. They were not allowed to reach where the president was. This was an open meeting. I remember very well, I think when those who were coming from the side of Lamore, even Honorable Hilary Onek was not allowed to enter in that meeting. I found Honorable Anya crying along the way when we were now going back. All those who were grieved in the community that were complaining were not allowed to enter that meeting and speak to the president. I remember in that meeting, one migrant cattle keeper even threatened the president. When the president asked him, so why did you come here? That where I am, it is now small. That is small. But why don't you, if it is small, why don't you do more than farming so that your animal fit in there? Then he told the president in their local dialect that, okay, Mr. President, now you're chasing us from here, we shall meet in the voting. Meaning, if he chases him, he will not vote him. He told the president in public.
But it's the same thing that has been told to the president by honorable honorable MPs that are there.
Yes, so I'm just telling you why the community complained. It was the president who invited the leaders. And the leaders told him, Mr. President, there's something we have seen. Yes, it's true the Karamjongs are raiding our animals. They are killing people. But there's again something we are seeing in our communities. So when the president did that, he did his own investigation. And having listened to both sides, the cattle keepers there, who sent their representatives, now this I'm including landowners. I'd never heard about them. By that time, they existed. But for sure, what I know, and they also know, they were mobilized by the cattle keepers as landowners. And actually, they are not necessarily landowners. They're actually agents, land.
Brokers.
Brokers, actually. Yeah. I think I should say so. Now, that's when the president, after some time, after consulting widely with those two groups, even invited, again, I think, the Chief Justice and the Minister of Justice. After widely consulting with both sides, he now issues the Executive Order number 3 of 2023, which included all those conditions. In fact, the position in that Executive Order was that everybody will live. It even narrated so, it's so detailed. Then when he issued that Executive Order, there were consultations. A number of people from the north there, including now the so-called landowners, cattle farmers in northern Uganda and so on. Now the president listened to them, said, okay, if that's the case, let's now give these guidelines. But those guidelines were not in the original, the real Executive Order number 3. So those were that, one, if you have land, you must have fenced with the 3 strands of wire, that you must have water in your farm. Why? Because you should be keeping your livestock within a confined, controlled area so that they don't go to your neighbors. So that's what happened. But when they began, because the order was to those who don't comply to that, later on the guidelines given, after consultation and complaint from other cattle keepers who were in the north, the president made those adjustments to keep watching and give those guidelines. Now, in late 2023, we had the outbreak of the foot and mouth disease. And this process was halted to avoid spreading animal disease, because quarantine was declared. Quarantine was declared in a number of districts around northern Uganda. So to avoid spreading cattle disease, and particularly that was foot and mouth disease, it was halted to allow government procure enough vaccines to vaccinate livestock against foot and mouth disease before this operation could continue. Now, that was now around February 2024, when that was done. Now, all that time, government put in effort to vaccinate livestock and then continue monitoring. Unfortunately, Timothy, surprisingly, more livestock against the order moved into northern Uganda. This time, actually even beyond Acholi you're talking about. So we are talking about northern Uganda. Northern Uganda is not only in Acholi. Northern Uganda includes Lango, Acholi, and West Nile. So more animals actually now, more livestock, moved into these areas against the guidelines and including even the executive order of the president. Now, later on, when the government vaccinated livestock all over the country with massive vaccination, investment in animal vaccines, it was now found that there were no longer foot and mouth disease in northern Uganda, and quarantine were already lifted in a number of these areas. That's now when we had a meeting. But all this time we have been collecting data. Security was collecting data and seeing what was happening. All these vices, all this discomfort that were created in that area actually had escalated. You know, when you sit in Kampala and read reports written to you by others, sometimes you actually end up very, very wrong. And I'm very, very surprised. I'm very surprised. I think these days, Andrew is very busy with so many things. I must, and I want to really, I want to plead with you. I think tone down on a number of things so that you are able to concentrate on factual issues like you do. I think you have been so busy. I must appreciate, Andrew, you have been so busy, and I forgive you. Why? Okay. Let me finish. Why? Because actually the narrative Andrew is giving is actually now the narrative that others are wanting, who want this thing to put this whole thing to look like. Let me say this, Andrew, as you cut me. One, this is not a tribal matter. It is an issue about a people who have just recovered from war. Timothy, these are fellows who have been in camps for over 20 years. When they are going back home, elders died in the camps, senior people died off, others migrated. When they are going back home, they couldn't even tell where is our land, where are our boundaries. Others don't even know they can't even appreciate that land is better used as a factor of production than as a commodity itself for trade. So it is not, let me finish this point. It is not about the tribal, it is about this behavior of people in northern Uganda. Person who called them Balalo was the president in his description. Why is it that, by the way, Timothy, you forget, Balalo, who we are calling Balalo, we are not only being evicted from northern Uganda, they were once evicted from Bulisa. Why didn't you bring this narrative that it was tribal that time? So this is not a tribal matter. It is about, government has a responsibility of protecting the weak. If some people who are just recovering from war are complaining about something, it is a responsibility of government to protect them as well.
Thank you. Allow me to bring in Kennedy. Kennedy, hearing from the Honorable Minister, the social strata is the problem. Andrew is saying, this is politics at hand here. You are a publicity person, you're in charge of also landowners there. When you look at this whole issue, what are the undertones? What are we missing with this whole thing?
Thank you so much, Timothy, and I appreciate the presentation of the Minister, Professor, and the old man of the plan, Mwenda. Allow me to first start by respectfully disagree with the Minister that we are, and as well, Professor, that we are association of brokers and land sellers. And we were mobilized by the Balalo to come and defend them in this matter.
You didn't hear that from me, so when you say minister and professor, you are not being correct. We didn't hear that from me.
Okay. From the,
You said that I only heard about you. When that's the first time I heard about you. No prophetic, maybe.
It's the Honorable Minister. Yes.
Okay, leaving that aside, if at all there are some individuals called the Balalo whom we claim they are in northern Uganda and in Acholi land also inclusive. And you're denying that they are not sitting on someone's land, then does it adds up? Because there must be the owner of some land whom a person is staying. So that forms the basis that the land are there. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So leaving that aside, allow me to first take a brief history of the Balal and the genesis of how all these things started. We as the landowners, we have been in tricky positions.
Okay.
We have been blamed by both the politicians, by both the government, and as well as sometimes the so-called Balalo themselves. But the truth of the matter is, for us, the landowner, we accepted that mistakes were made. These mistakes that were made by government, were made by we, the landowners, were made by the Balalo. The so-called Balalo, for us, we know them as the migrant cattle keepers. What mistakes were made by the government?
Mm-hmm.
Timothy, for me, I am a little bit bitter when I look at the statistics from UBOS about the poverty in northern Uganda and zeroing actually sub-region where I come from. When people return from the IDP, there was no comprehensive plan of resettling someone who has stayed out of his home for like 20 years or so. So people just went, you have no source of livelihood, you have to start from the scratch, just like Professor Mason. I hope you will not disagree this time. People who went back are children who probably their parents have died and remain in camps. And probably you even don't know the boundaries of the land. That started the initial problems of land conflict. However, that said one thing which was wrong. The leaders came in. If you have been following the politics of northern Uganda, there was a period where everyone who wants to come to parliament will say, I am going to protect your land. Land is the only wealth you have remained. But they fail to explain to the local populations how that land can be turned into wealth. Now with the pressure of poverty, with also the challenges that these so-called children who never even, sorry, is it okay? Yeah. So with the children who never knew the proper boundary of the land conflict started. Now this land conflict which started, some people found themselves in endless court cases. The only option now is to look for someone who is powerful to buy your land to protect you from the endless court cases. I hope we all agree with this. And that set a very wrong precedent. Now coming to the leaders, if you trace the first Mulalo to reach Acholi land was not brought by a local man like me, neither even any other owners of the land. It were people who were well placed, people who could sit in Kampala corridors of power, in the corridors of parliament, in Serena conference hall, maybe at the waiting lounge in Entebbe when they're flying outside, who were telling the people that we have land in our home there. So calling us the brokers of the land, I think, land brokers, I think it is just very secondary. The true land brokers were the elites of the Acholi land. Because there is nowhere where someone from Okidi probably will connect with General Mbade, who has a chunk of land in Noya. So when you trace that, it tells you that we, the landowners, we were just doing what we did for the sake of saving even the land we were having, because the elites were finishing this land from us.
Which elites?
Those were the actual elites who connived with their counterparts to come and buy land. Because even as I speak now, we find it problematic that some of the land which we have bought from some family, you will find the first buyer is a person or a son of the soil, like you like mentioning. But before you know, later, it is transferred to someone else. So that tells you the magnitude of the challenges the local person was facing. Now, the issues of the Balalo which has come of late, we have been blamed that we are protecting the Balalo, we are objecting the presidential directive of the eviction order, the executive order. That is not the case, Timothy. For us as the landowners, under our association, we are saying, let verification be done. Because verification will address the key issues the president raised in the executive order. One of the issues was the indisciplines of the so-called Balalo. If you do the verification, you will get to the nitty-gritty of what kind of these indisciplines are. Because we have cases, we hear also of animal trampling crops, maybe a Balal fighting the locals, maybe disrespecting the culture, and so forth. But that is just an allegation. For you to get to the gist of the matter or to the bottom of the matter, you need to go and do verification and find out the truth. So now, our dismay in this position is, we are hearing the Balalo under the second executive order must go and then verification take place. This one doesn't make logic. Because whom then will you interview during the verification? For example, for me as a landowner, with the little